Night. Parliament House, Canberra, Australia's political powerhouse, where tonight's winner will determine the country's fate for the next 3 years. Promises have been made.
Australia needs a new way.
If you want a new way, you've got to choose a new government.
The contest has been heated.
Does this guy ever shut up?
The issues that matter to them.
My job is to protect your jobs, your pay and your basic conditions.
This is our country and we determine who comes here.
And matter to you. A campaign that's taken them across the country. East to west, north to south. Face to face with the people who count. Today, their political fate is in your hands. 14.7 million voters, 150 seats, 2 contenders, only one winner to lead your country. It's your vote. This is Your Call 2013.
This is it. Election Day, September 7 on 7. It's your call and we're standing by to bring you Australia's verdict. Will it be an underdog victory by Kevin Rudd, or will Tony Abbott be Prime Minister on his second attempt? We are live across the country to bring you all the developments as they happen, while our team of reporters is standing by in more than 20 key seats across Australia. Sharon Gadella and Alex Hart are at the official campaign functions in Brisbane and Sydney.
And to give you the best insight into how the election is unfolding, we've assembled an experienced panel of experts. Alongside me, fresh off the campaign trail, is Seven's political editor Mark Riley, who doesn't look tired at all. We have a number of people joining us tonight, starting with Jeff Kennett, Alexander Downer and Bronwyn Bishop. Thank you very much for your time. As well as Paul Howes, Stephen Loosley and Christopher Pine. Thanks for being here, gentlemen. Now, throughout the night, we'll also be joined by John Hewson, Don Farrell and Bob Catter. As the votes are counted and the seats begin to fall, our team will give you a fairly frank assessment of who got it right and where it went wrong.
As you watch at home, we'll have the very latest numbers constantly updating on the screen. Who will come out on top of our wheel of political fortune? We'll take you inside our virtual parliament to see if the coalition, well, it will replace Labor on the government benches. This is what it looks like now. It will be very different by the end of the night, with Tony Abbott as the Prime Minister, no doubt. Find out who will go in the most vulnerable seats across the country. It's game on.
Sure is, Riles, and tonight I'll be giving you access to information about your electorate like you have never had before. This is our exclusive interactive touch screen. It's powered by Esri Australia. It allows us to break down every single seat in the land, all 150 of them, with all of the issues that matter to you. Personal, who lives in your electorate? Financial, what are the stresses you're under? Infrastructure, how do we get around? What type of internet access do we have? Employment and education, and ancestry. What languages do we speak at home? Where do we come from? How does this baby work? Well, why don't we check out the top 5 safest seats, because we'll be talking a lot about marginal seats, so it's probably good to give these guys an early shout-out. Mallee in Victoria, 24.4% held by the Nationals. In fact, 4 of the top 5 safest seats are in Victoria. Number 3 is Maranoa in Queensland, rock solid for the LNP in 2010 with 22.9%. They also rank highly in terms of early voters too, and I reckon that's probably got something to do with the fact that the Birdsville races are on today. We'll cross live to our reporter there as well. And here's a seat that you'll be hearing a lot about this evening, the seat of Fowler. This figure, 9.9%, is unemployment, ranked second in the nation, almost 6,000 people out of work. And this is such a critical area, as you can see, in Western Sydney, as Labor is fighting hard. Now, check out this. Throughout the evening, we'll be able to see exactly what you're tweeting seat by seat. So here's some tweets active from the seat of Fowler. Still queues at Green Valley, but nothing compared to this morning. And you can attach a photo as well. And I like this one too, from right next door. Voting for Hanson. Now, if you want to be part of the discussion, all you've got to do is add the hashtag YourCall7 to your tweet and make sure that your location services is turned on. Mel, it's a very cool toy. We're going to have some fun.
Oh, I can tell already. Matt, thank you. Plus, you can be involved in our real-time polls using the 7 News viewer vote. So get your computer or your smartphone ready and you can join in very shortly. But first, it's over to 7's panel of experts with Chris Barth and Mark Riley.
Thanks, Mel. Well, as the last of voters head into the polling booths along the East Coast, let's find out from our panel their thoughts on this campaign. Firstly, to Mark Riley, the general feeling is that this is a foregone conclusion. So what are we going to be watching for tonight? Yeah,
well, the general feeling is right, Chris. This is a foregone conclusion. Tony Abbott will be the 28th Prime Minister of Australia very soon, I expect. But the story really is not that. We expect that. The story is what happens in the individual seats, the evolving narrative of Australian politics. Some big names, some big personalities will go from politics tonight. People we've never heard of will become members of Parliament. Our democracy is changing before our eyes. There'll be dramas in small seats. There'll be personal dramas, an evolving narrative. It's going to be an exciting night to see who survives and who arrives.
I was just going to say, you don't sound excited at all. Christopher Pine, how many seats do you expect to win?
Oh, Chris, I think it's too early to be predicting.
Oh, come on, you must have an idea.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to jinx
the just about over,
the
Chris,
booth. Not in Western Australia, it's not. They're still voting there. They're still voting in my own seat of Sturt. But you'd have to say that Labor has run about as bad a campaign as you could possibly imagine. But the real story about the last 3 years is the public is sick of the politicians treating politics like their own plaything. The disunity and the division of the last 3 years, very hard for Labor to overcome that. Because it means that the public think you're not focusing on our job, you're focusing on your own fun that you're having in Canberra. And I think this is a pox on division in politics, this election.
So the number of seats, will it be with an 8 in front of it or a 9, or will it be more than that?
It's going to be impossible to get me to make a prediction before the polls even close.
Rob, we might just ask Paul Howes then. Paul Howes, you must have some idea. What do you think?
Well, like Christopher said, everyone is still voting, and in some states they'll be voting for a few more hours to come. I guarantee you, Chris, division and disunity within your own political party is never fun, there was not much fun had by the Labor team during those destructive fights that did occur. But it's clear tonight that the odds are very heavily weighed into the coalition's favour. I think it's very likely that we'll see people like Chris at the end of the night becoming ministers of the new incoming government. But I do think we'll see some interesting results. So there are a few seats that I'm very keen to have a look at. I think the seat of Indi in regional Victoria, where it's very likely that Sophie Mirabella will be tossed out in favour of Cathy McGowan, the strong independent there. How on earth you can turn a 9% margin against you when you have a large swing towards you across the rest of the country, if the polling is correct, is beyond me. And then, of course, as you said, Riles, in your opening remarks, regardless of what seats fall to which party, you are having some very substantial characters in Australian politics moving on tonight just by not recontesting their seats, and the nature of Australian politics will be changed dramatically tomorrow from what we've experienced in the past.
One of the seats that was expected to change hands tonight was Greenway, except for maybe a couple of campaign gaffes here and there. Here's Matt White to tell us why.
Yeah, well, there are some quite interesting facts and figures when you zero in on Greenway, Barthy, and this is one of them. It is the 4th most marginal seat in the country and Labor's most marginal seat in New South Wales, held by Michelle Rowland by just under 1%. But the really interesting part here is informal votes in this seat ranks top 10 in the nation, 10.3%. Now, Michelle Rowland won in 2010 by about 1,400 votes, but 9,000 votes weren't counted in the seat of Greenway, so the result could have been really different. Out in Western Sydney, it's all about connecting with mums and dads, and this is the reason why. Top 5 couples with kids. So let's run through them again. The top 5 seats, Mitchell, Barara, and there's Greenway. 55.8% of voters in Greenway are couples with kids. But mortgage stress is really killing them. 3rd in the nation. The national median for mortgage stress, those who are using a third or more of their income to pay off their mortgages, 16.4%. In Greenway, it's 21.2%. Check in for Twitter and see what they're saying in the seat of Greenway this evening. This is from Jolene. where was my free sausage sizzle for waking up and voting? I hear you, Jolene.
Free?
And from Parramatta, they should be free, shouldn't they? And from Parramatta, likely new Liberal MP for Parramatta, Martin Zeta, posing with his baby son, Ethan.
Hey.
Thanks, Matt. That's why you've got to get in early, before the sausages and the fresh bread run out. Seven's election coverage is interactive, so we don't want to just hear what our panel of experts think. We want to know your thoughts as well. So it's over to you for our first 7 News viewer vote. Now, grab your smartphone or your tablet, head to our website and you can start voting. So the first question tonight, who ran the best campaign? The Greens, Bob Katter, Labor, the Liberal National Coalition or Palmer United Party. So have your say now by simply tapping on the number 1 choice, whichever you think it is, and as the nation votes, the results will appear along the bottom of your TV screen.
Well, a man not averse to having his say is former Victorian Premier Jeff Kennett. Who do you think had the best campaign?
I don't think there's any doubt the Conservatives ran the much better campaign.
There's no bias on your part of
No, it was more consistent. It wasn't policy on the run. Tony incorporated his own front bench, whereas Kevin didn't, and particularly future leaders like Bill Shorten were hiding their light under a bushel. I think there's probably 4 things we're looking for tonight. The size of the majority, what happens to the Senate, which we won't know tonight, whether Kay Rudd holds his seat, and I'll be very interested in what happens in Tasmania. Tasmania's the only other state where they've had a minority government which has very much eaten away at the lifestyle of the Tasmanians. And you could see, with perhaps 1 independent surviving down there, all 4 seats falling to the coalition. I disagree with Paul's comment about Sophie Mirabella. I think she'll hold a seat. I think when it comes down to the crunch, people will be saying no to independence as a generalisation and no to Greens, and I expect she'll hold a seat.
And is that because of recent experience, obviously?
I think the public are sick and tired of having the disruption, the failure of a unified group of adults running the country, and I just hope they've given, in this case, it looks as though the coalition sufficient authority to govern for the next 3 years. We cannot afford to sit back and tolerate another 3 years of what we've already had.
Mr Downer, we saw Chris Pine and Paul House sit on the fence there about the size of the majority, but what's your feeling on what the size will be?
Well, look, if you take into consideration the opinion polls, the most recent opinion polls, and you have a look at the exit poll that there has been on a competitor television channel, I mean, it does seem to indicate the coalition will end up with somewhere in the vicinity of around 90 seats. But the difficulty with making predictions of that kind is that you extrapolate the general.
Yeah.
And what you will get is variations within individual seats. So there's been discussion, for example, about the seat of Indi. I agree with Jeff. I think Sophie Mirabella will actually win that seat for the reasons he describes. But you will get random results in different seats, and so it's impossible to know quite how that will break. It depends on the demographics. It can depend on the quality of the two major party candidates. There is another issue too, and particularly I would say in Queensland, there's a question about the flow of the preferences. So if the Palmer United Party gets, say, 10% in a particular seat, where will their preferences go? They may have been directed in a particular direction. That doesn't mean they'll all
whether
go
they'll hold the integrity. They're supposed to flow to the LNP in the House, but to Labor in the Senate.
Right.
Who knows what happens there?
In the Senate, of course, they're likely to flow to Labor, but in the House, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the people, it seems to me, a lot of the people, it seems to me, who are intending to vote for the Palmer United Party, they're not LNP, they're not Liberal Party or National Party voters. These are Labor voters who are disillusioned with Rudd and the Labor Party.
Yep.
We've had 3,000 votes already, I think, on who had the best campaign. We only asked a couple of minutes ago for all of you to give us your opinion, so thanks very much for that. Bronwyn Bishop, does this feel like 96 to you? Have you noticed a difference at booths and where people are voting today?
I've noticed a huge difference in booths. The difference in the mood between this election and the last election is just huge. For instance, in my own electorate this morning, the queues were just a mile long everywhere. Early turnout indicates people have made up their mind. Even in the pre-polls, there were queues out the door. People just wanted to come in and vote. And the most unlikely people would come up to you and say, just get rid of them. And so it was on the ground in one of the biggest booths, which very often has had a larger than Labor vote than some of my other booths. The Labor Party people were scarce on the ground and late to get there. There were no get-up people this year. There was no harassment. It was just more gentility, if I dare use the word, with people getting their sausage sandwich and having their cup of tea.
Did they pay though, Bronwyn? Did you have free sausages at your booths?
No, they were painful. These were fundraisers.
$4.
All right,